Hey, Senator Sanders. Great.
Good.
Thanks.
How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for joining us. So what's going on in your world, in the Senate and in our country?
These are tough times. They are tough times because the country faces almost unprecedented problems, and we have a political party, a major political party, which is determined to do nothing except obstruct, and it becomes very, very distressing. I'm just reading a little bit more about climate change and the fact that the scientific community is virtually unanimous about climate change being caused by human activity, the devastating impacts we're already seeing in terms of drought and floods and forest fires and oceans that are getting warmer and depleted fish stock, and the migration of people fighting for limited resources. It is a huge problem, and not only are we not addressing the problem, we have a major political party which is rejecting basic science, and that is really, really scary, because I don't know that a modern society, a great nation, survives if basic science is rejected. So that's concern, in terms of science and how we function as a society, that is very distressing. Now we're looking at another issue, is that the Highway Trust Fund right now is going broke, and that has to do with the fact that we just don't have enough revenue coming in, and at a time when our infrastructure, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, needs $3 trillion of investment. $3 trillion just to bring us up to a reasonable place. And that means dealing with our roads and our bridges, our water plants, wastewater plants, our rail, our aging schools. We can't get a bill passed. We can't get a bill passed, and that fund is now going broke, which means that hundreds and hundreds of construction projects around the country which depend on this federal funding will not take place, and it could cost us, if you can believe it, some 700,000 jobs at exactly the time when we need decent paying jobs. We're fighting right now and continuing the effort to raise the minimum wage. I think almost everybody in America, regardless of political persuasion, understands that $7.25 an hour, which is the federal minimum wage, is a starvation wage. We've got to raise that wage. It is, in terms of inflation, far lower than it used to be. And what we're struggling with now is not only trying to raise the minimum wage, but deal with folks in the Republican Party who want to abolish the concept of the minimum wage, who think that it is undue government restriction to say there should be at least a floor on what employers can pay in the United States. And they would take us back to the time when people are paid pennies an hour. So if you're in a high unemployment area, you could be paid $3-4 an hour. And that is, to some of my right-wing Republican colleagues, what freedom is about. So we have a myriad of very, very serious problems, and a lot of it relates to campaign financing. As a result of this disastrous Citizens United decision, big money interests are now able to spend as much as they want on the political process, and billionaires like the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson and others are prepared to do just that. Meanwhile, we have an election coming up in a few months, and the pundits tell us, Tom, that something like 60% of the American people are not going to vote. So the dynamic of contemporary American politics is that billionaires can spend hundreds of millions of dollars in support of right-wing candidates who will make the rich even richer, and yet working people and low-income people are so disgusted with what's going on right now, they're not even voting. So you're having a situation where not only will 60% of the people not vote, if you're lower income, if you're young, we're looking at numbers like 70 or 80% of the people. So what kind of democracy do you have when billionaires buy election and the vast majority of the people no longer even vote?
It's a disaster.
Yeah, it is. And we have got to, it is not easy stuff. Believe me, it is a lot easier to talk about it than to do something about it. But what we have got to do is take on the establishment, take on the corporate media, and just convey to people what democracy is about and how important the political process is. And it just breaks my heart to hear from young people especially, but from a whole lot of people saying, oh, politics, you know, it's all crap, they're all thieves, they're all crooks, they're all bums, I'm not getting involved. Yeah, well, if you're not going to get involved and change the system, if you're not going to get involved and take on the big money interests, if you're not going to get involved, well, I will tell you that the middle class will continue to decline, poverty will continue to increase, the gap between the very, very rich and everybody else will continue to grow wider. Your job is going to continue to go to China. We're not going to address the enormous planetary crisis of climate change. On the other hand, what we should understand is that change is possible. It can happen. And, you know, one of the very positive things, and we sometimes take it for granted, Tom, is how quickly change comes about when people demand that change. This country has gone a long, long way in terms of overcoming racism. We know that racism still exists. But I think if you and I were talking 20, 30 years ago, we never would have believed there'd be an African-American elected president and reelected. That is a sea change in public consciousness regarding race that we as a nation should be very proud of. The same thing regarding women's rights. I remember when I was mayor of the city of Burlington, Vermont, and we appointed the first woman police officer. It was just a huge revolutionary deal. And now you see in every field of life, you know, women participating fully. 20 years ago, I think there was one woman senator. Today there are 19, and that number is only going to go up. Governors, congresspeople. We have made huge progress in opening up all walks of life to women. And I think a lot of young people don't even understand the efforts that so many people made in that struggle. In terms of disability rights, you can remember when we were younger, people who had disabilities were put away in institutions. That's changed. Gay rights has changed. Change can happen, but it doesn't happen unless people are involved in the process.
So very well said. Senator Bernie Sanders is with us. He'll be taking your calls right after this break. The rest of the hour, it'll be our national town hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie, here on the Thom Hartmann program. So, and I see the calls are queuing up, so we'll get to you in just a moment.
This is the Thom Hartmann program.
By the way, NPR did a great piece on Bernie this morning. There's a link to it over at democraticulderground.com, and we'll put one up on our website as well. And welcome back. Gant, watching Free Speech TV on the DirecTV satellite system. You are in Thompson Station, Tennessee. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello?
Gant, you are on the air.
Oh, hi. Senator, it's a pleasure to speak to you. I have a question about the Republican and their agendas. Based on what I'm hearing from you, you're on the halls of the Capitol every day. Is it true that the conservative end of things are deliberately thwarting all of these efforts? I mean, just as a deliberately against Obama? And if so, what is their overall objective to completely thwart all of these budgets, all of these ideas that the president's trying to do, everything that the moderates to the liberals are trying to do? Why are they doing this? And what is the method to their madness, I guess, is my question, because it doesn't really seem to make sense. They're absolutely killing our country.
Well, Gant, there is a method to their madness, and I think it is no great secret that Republicans met literally just at the time when Obama was inaugurated the first time, and they said our strategy has got to be obstructionism to make sure that as little as possible happens. And then when the economy tanks and problems occur, we blame it on the president because most people don't understand or are following what is going on. So what you have had in the Senate is a record number of filibusters. And by that I mean not just people getting to the floor and speaking for a long period of time. That's part of Senate tradition. That's always gone on. But what you're seeing now is the demand for 60 votes on virtually every issue. There was a time when, this surprises many Americans. They think, well, a majority wins in the Senate. It doesn't. You need now on virtually every single piece of legislation, significant or minor, 60 votes. That used to be the exception to the rule. Now it is the rule. And that means that the Republicans can defeat almost everything. And that is unprecedented, that level of obstructionism. So we are now a dysfunctional institution where virtually nothing is getting done, despite the fact that we have huge, huge problems. And what the Republicans believe, and it may in fact end up working the way they hope, is that if Congress doesn't act, if problems are not addressed, people will blame the president. Most people in this country don't know which party controls the House and controls the Senate. They don't know those things. So they will blame President Obama. They will forget what Bush did, and they will blame President Obama. So that is the method in their madness, but I'm not so sure it is a terrible, terrible approach if you're concerned about the future of America, if you're concerned about the middle class, if you're concerned about the elderly or the kids. But in fact, from a political point of view, it may not be so crazy.
Yeah, we just have 10 seconds till the break here, Senator.
Well, the antidote to all of this stuff is, Tom, is we need people to be thinking about politics and government in a way they never have.
Getting politically active, movement politics.
Yes, absolutely.
And showing up to not just to vote, but even to run for office. Senator Bernie Sanders is with us. We'll be back with more of your calls for him in our Brunch with Bernie segment here on the Thom Hartmann program. Check out his website, sanders.senate.gov. Past the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. We're doing Brunch with Bernie a day early as Senator Sanders is traveling tomorrow. And Amy in Madison, Wisconsin, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, thank you. Senator Sanders, Sherry Brown is trying to get the reallocation of the FICA for the Disability Trust Fund, so there won't be an automatic 21% to the disabled in 2016. Do you support Sherry Brown?
Absolutely. Sherrod is doing a great job. He's on the Finance Committee. There have been, when people ask me, what is the Republican agenda? In a sentence, it is to make the rich richer and to cut virtually every program that the middle class or working families, or in this case, the disabled, depend upon. There is no tax break out there for the rich or large corporations that the Republicans don't support. They would, Tom, do away with the estate tax, which applies to the wealthiest of the wealthy, fewer than 1% of the population. They would abolish that and cost us many billions of dollars of revenue. But when it comes to attacking the middle class or working families or programs that people desperately depend upon, they will go after those programs. So, Amy, the answer is, of course I am. We work very, very hard to prevent cuts to Social Security. We had to take on much of the entire world. To do that, we were successful in defeating the so-called chain CPI, which would have made devastating cuts in Social Security, and we're going to fight hard against any cuts to people who are on disability benefits.
Fred in Sarasota, Florida, listening on Sirius XM. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Senator, for everything that you do for us. I got an email yesterday from my commander at my veterans organization that the application process workers at the VA applications was shifted from doing UA business to processing Obamacare. Now, this is going around to the veterans organizations. Can you tell me if this is true or false, sir?
No, it is not true.
Oh, my God. It is absolutely terrible. No matter what I looked up, I couldn't find it anywhere with a reputable source. But this is happening among the leaders of veterans organizations. I wish somebody could pick up on this so I could prove it to these people.
Thank you, Fred.
What can I tell you? Right now, I think there may be an effort in some cases to tell veterans what they are entitled to in terms of health care benefits, but the idea that we're shifting people away is just not accurate. And by the way, while we're on veterans issues, Fred, I want you to know that we are working very, very hard right now in order to pass a very significant and important piece of veterans legislation, which would end the waiting periods that veterans are experiencing in various locations around the country, enable them to go outside of the VA temporarily to get the health care that they need, and at the same time bring in new doctors and nurses and other medical personnel so that veterans can get quality health care in a timely manner at the VA. It's an issue we are spending a lot of time and energy on right now.
Marlise in Cloverdale, California, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to ask Bernie, are we able to get together, all of us, all the groups like 350.org and all of them, and basically fight the fossil fuel, with strength, and power? I would also recommend to you and Tom both that you read the Nation issue on 5/12 that had an article by Chris Hayes, Naomi Klein, and also Dan Zegart. See, to me, there is no reason, or anyway, I'm sorry. I think all of you should call the Republicans out for what they are. They're unpatriotic. They're un-American.
Okay. Marlise, we're wandering into multiple topics here.
Okay, let me just respond to Marlise. I know Chris Hayes and I know Naomi Klein, and they do fantastic work. And here's what the issue is. This is not even being unpatriotic. We are facing a situation where the scientific community is virtually unanimous. And it was interesting, Tom, I don't know if you noticed, that the BBC recently announced that they were not going to give equivalent time to the deniers and the scientists.
Right. The LA Times did that a while back, too.
Did they?
Yeah.
In other words, you have a reality. Climate change is real. That's not debatable anymore.
Right.
And it is already causing devastating problems in this country, and those problems will only get worse. The issue here is, how can people risk the future of the planet by continuing to deny what is absolutely scientifically verified, and do that because they're more interested, perhaps, in some cases, getting campaign contributions from the Koch brothers and other fossil fuel companies. And these guys are sacrificing the habitability, if you like, of this planet, the well-being of this planet, not only for our generation, but for future generations. So we have people like groups like 350.org and other groups are doing a fantastic job mobilizing people, and we have got to continue that effort. And by the way, I would say that the momentum is with us. People now see with their eyes what is happening to the planet all over the world. And more people understand that we have got to become energized and aggressive in combating climate change.
Senator, we have 25 seconds here. Is there a legislative solution? I mean, things like carbon taxes?
Yeah, I have introduced that legislation along with Senator Barbara Boxer. And it would have a profound impact on transforming our energy system right now. Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Sure. Okay. Senator Bernie Sanders is with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann program. We're doing it a day early because Senator Sanders is going to be traveling tomorrow. And we're very glad you can be with us today, Thursday. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Bernie right after this. Be sure to check out his website at sanders.senate.gov. Welcome back. It's the Thom Hartmann program, and we're doing Brunch with Bernie, an hour a day early here. This hour, Senator Sanders taking your calls. And Kevin in Santa Fe, New Mexico, listening on KTRC. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, thanks for all your hard work. You too, Tom. I wanted to ask, when you caucus with the Democrats, is there someone who's in charge of combating these erroneous Republican talking points? For example, a Republican congressman wrote an article and said $800 million a year in taxes is going to fight the failed war on poverty, and it makes my head explode that nobody's there saying, what do you mean $800 million a year, and taking some facts and taking him down a peg?
The answer is yes, but very often people don't see what people are saying or trying to do. And a lot of this stuff does get out without the kind of proper response that we need. But I think, people will go to the floor of the Senate, people will do press conferences, but not all of these responses get out to people, which takes us to an issue that I have long been concerned about, and why I'm so proud to work with Thom Hartmann, is that we need a media out here to talk to people about the real issues that impact their lives and tell them what is pretty radical, which is the truth. And I think that Kevin is right. There's just a lot of dishonest statements. People come up with the craziest statements. They are not being refuted. But what I would say, Kevin, is yes, there is a huge attempt to try to confront the dishonesty that we hear every single day from our Republican colleagues.
Don in Delaware, listening on Sirius XM. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Earlier this week in the Wall Street Journal, they said an article on Senator Clinton that she's going to the right of President Obama and on most of his policies. Will this help you make up your mind on running against her in 2016?
Well, one of the things that just, you'll be surprised to hear me say this. It just, I get very tired about all of the political gossip that is out there about Senator Clinton or about anybody else. I don't think the Wall Street Journal knows what her positions are on the issues. I suspect, I have very little doubt that my views are going to be far more progressive than Senator Clinton's, but there's a lot of, I think, gossip going on around her. But what I will say to you, Don, is that as a nation, and one of the reasons I am giving some thought to running for president, is we need a serious discussion on the major issues facing our country. And it appalls me very, very much that over 60% of the American people don't know which parties control the House and the Senate, have very little idea about what is in the budget, know very little about the role that the Republican Party plays in trying to protect the wealthy and the powerful, and obstruct almost any progress toward helping the middle class or working families. So what we need, and if I run, this is what I want to do, is to start a very serious discussion about why it is that the middle class is disappearing while the rich get much richer. Why it is that big money today is able to buy elections and 60% of the people in November are not going to vote. Why it is that we are not effectively dealing with climate change and creating the millions of jobs that we can, transforming our energy system or rebuilding our infrastructure. So I am not interested in what the Wall Street Journal is speculating about Hillary Clinton. What I'm interested in is a serious debate about how we can once again have a middle class and a working class that has a decent standard of living, how we can have a democracy where one vote, one person is what it's about, not big money buying elections. And that is something I feel very, very strongly about. We need that debate. And I think when we have that debate, you're going to find that the overwhelming majority of the American people do not believe that government should be giving more and more tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires and cutting payments for disability people on disability benefits, or Social Security, or Medicare and Medicaid. And our job is to bring the American people together around an agenda which stands for the vast majority and not just the 1%.
Kurt in Scranton, Pennsylvania, listening on WFTE. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Well, Senator Tom, thanks so much for being there for us. my question is based around the intellectual and mental sub-skills needed to confront our problems. I'm the founder of a small nonprofit called the Common Sense Revival, and we're promoting critical thinking and positive psychology. And to that end, when I ran for Congress, the slogan was "Give every child a chance." How, Senator, can we create an equally funded, critical thinking-based school system so that the great swath of America is ready to address these challenges and figure out what are the lies and what are the truths about our circumstances today?
Well, Kurt, that is a great question, and it would take us a very long time to answer it. But let me first of all thank you for focusing attention on the most vulnerable people in our country, the kids, who very rarely get the kind of focus that their needs require. We kind of push aside the fact that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty, close to 22%, the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, that we have huge numbers of kids who are dependent upon their nutrition, they get food stamps for their nutrition. We have a very, very high unemployment rate for young people. Our dropout rate for kids in high school is astronomical, and these kids then wander out into society, hanging out on street corners, doing drugs, doing self-destructive activity. So a focus on the future of America, which is our kids, making sure they get good quality childcare when their parents are at work, good quality education, have the ability, regardless of their incomes of their families, to go to college, that is what we should be thinking about. And also, when you talk about critical thought, it means having excellent schools, investing in our schools, understanding that teachers do some of the most important work in America, treating them with respect, paying them accordingly, but putting a premium on understanding that intellectual activity and education is one of the most important things that our society should be doing.
Gordon in Spokane, Washington. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to start out saying that, as we all know, FDR gave us the New Deal. Senator Sanders, you are the real deal, and I sincerely hope you will run in 2016. My question is, when Vermont, the state of Vermont, in the process of implementing single payer in that state, are they going to take the private insurance companies out of the equation, which is the way it should be done?
Well, Gordon, you can't have a single payer system if you have private insurance companies in the system. So the answer is yes. What there may be, I think there is still a debate as to whether the entity to run the system will be the state itself or the state will contract out with another entity. But certainly private insurance companies seeking to make a profit off of healthcare will be out of that equation.
Aaron in Charleston, West Virginia. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, Senator. I was just going to say, I feel like it's a bipartisan issue, but I was wondering where Congress is at working towards protecting individual privacy rights.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for that very important question. It is a bipartisan issue in the sense that there are some very conservative Republicans who are at least consistent in their opposition to big government. When you hear Republicans talking about, we hate big government, that's why we got to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, et cetera, we know where they're coming from. But then when they are asked to say, well, what about big government in terms of the NSA collecting data on your phone calls or getting into your emails or getting into your websites, don't you think that that is big government intrusion? Don't you think that's unconstitutional? Don't you think that is an invasion of privacy rights? Some of these anti-government people withdraw on that issue. So you are seeing, Aaron, a kind of unusual coalition coming together of progressives and others and conservatives trying to beat back this effort, not only on the part of government and modern technology to intrude in every aspect of our lives, but also private corporations doing the same. You would be quite surprised, Aaron, that there are private companies out there who know a whole lot about you, a lot more than you think that they do. So I think if freedom means anything, it is being able to have a modicum, at least, of privacy without having government or the private sector and large corporations knowing everything about our lives.
Do you, 20 seconds, Senator, do you see any movement in Congress to do something about this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there is an effort to, I would go further than where Congress will go, but there is an effort to, I think, rein in the NSA and other intelligence agencies from intruding into our lives.
Great. Senator Bernie Sanders is with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie segment here, our national town hall meeting with Senator Sanders that we have every week. We're doing it a day early today, so we'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. Be sure to check out his website, sanders.senate.gov.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And over at ThomHartmann.com, you can also drop into our free live chat room and participate in conversation with some of the finest minds on it. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Senator Sanders on the line with us. Paul in South Lyon, Michigan, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish Satellite Network. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen. I'm an economist, and I constantly hear congressional Republicans say we can't afford unemployment insurance, food stamps, or money for infrastructure or veterans benefits. This is like a farmer saying, I can't afford to buy seeds, so I'm going to save $500 on seeds and give up $100,000 in income on the crops. When the government spends $50 billion on infrastructure, for example, that money goes into the economy and changes hands on a daily basis. People go out to eat, and then people at the restaurant pay taxes on their money. Then they go stay at a hotel on vacation. People at the hotel pay taxes on their money. And in the long run, there is no cost to the government. It's like priming a pump. That water isn't wasted. You get it all back. Isn't that true, Senator?
Paul, thank you very much. I think in 2 minutes you gave a very cogent analysis of demand-side economics. And here's the reality, and Paul is exactly right. 70% of the economy depends upon consumer spending. And that is when I go out and spend money, I'm creating a job for somebody else. If I go into a restaurant or I buy food or I buy a service or I buy a product, somebody else is getting a job as a result of my expenditures. If you have a situation, which you have right now, where 95% of all new income goes to the top 1%, if you have a situation where tens of millions of people have seen a decline in their standard of living and just don't have any money to spend, we cannot create the jobs, especially decent paying jobs that we need. So when Paul talks about raising the minimum wage or putting money into our infrastructure and creating jobs, it means that working people now are having money coming in and they are able to go out and spend that money, and in doing that, they create jobs. So Paul is exactly right, and that analogy of a farmer not investing in seeds or furthermore a company not investing in advertising, you don't make any money. This is how you create economic growth, how you create jobs, by putting money into the hands of working people, many of whom do not have that money today. So, Paul, thank you very much for that wonderful description of exactly what is happening and where we have to go.
Senator, we have about 50 seconds. We used to talk, before Reagan, we used to talk about government investments. And now Republicans always attach the word spending to any money that government puts out. How do we shift that back to talking about government investing rather than spending?
Well, we've got to do a lot of education on that. In other words, when you invest in infrastructure, you not only, as Paul just indicated, create jobs and get that money spent and respent, you also improve the productivity and efficiency of this country. We are losing billions of dollars a year because cars are experiencing damage, going over potholes, People are waiting on long traffic jams, burning up gas and polluting the environment. Improving the infrastructure saves all of that by government investment.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. We'll be back with more your calls for Senator Sanders right after this. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Before the hour, welcome back. Tom Hartman here with you, and Matt in Marysville, California. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning, gentlemen. Hey, real quick question for you, Senator. We know that Mitch McConnell and the Republicans are obstructing just about any common sense bill that you folks are trying to move forward. What are you and or Senator Reid doing to bypass this obstructionism?
Well, Matt, thank you for the question. Here's what's happened. The Republicans were doing so much obstructionism in terms of demanding 60 votes and drawing out things day after day that could have been done in a few minutes, that what the Majority Leader, Harry Reid, did a number of months ago is said, okay, look, enough is enough. We can't even get presidential nominees through in a reasonable period of time. President appoints somebody to some agency, it drags on for month after month after month. We can't get judges appointed to courts where we have significant numbers of vacancies. So what he said is, on those issues, I am going to pass a rule, which the Democrats supported, that you're not going to need 60 votes, that you're going to need 50 votes. And the result of that is a whole lot of judges have been appointed. It's taken time to do that. Nominees have been able to get through in a lot quicker way. In my view, and I've been very clear about this, I think that Harry Reid should go further and basically say to the Republicans, look, if you want to continue to obstruct on these enormously important issues that impact the lives of working families throughout this country, whether it's health care, whether it is jobs, whether it is climate change, whether it is education, sorry, you can't do it. You're not the majority. You can't obstruct. And what I have suggested, and others have suggested, is we should take this majority vote, 51 votes, to all pieces of legislation, not just presidential nominees and judges. I think if you do that, we can pass real legislation. It will certainly be held up in the House. But the American people can then see what we are trying to do, or at least what most of us are trying to do, and what the House is doing, and they can make a judgment about which policies they feel comfortable with, and I think they will feel much more comfortable with the policies that we are advocating.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the two big issues that the Senate has actually passed that John Boehner is refusing to bring to a vote on the floor of the House, because they would pass if he did, are the extension of long-term unemployment benefits and the comprehensive immigration reform. Are there other pieces of legislation?
Those are the two major ones, Tom. So what you're saying is, which is right, but then people can make a judgment.
Right.
The problem we're having is we can't even get bills to the House for them to reject.
Right, right, got it. Mark in Brooklyn, New York, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon, Senator Sanders. Good afternoon, Tom. I'm curious. Health insurance cost is a business expense, right? And why aren't businesses pushing to have universal health care coverage? Because if they have that, then they wouldn't have that expense.
Well, Mark, that is an interesting question. And common sense would suggest that businesses would say, you know what? We in America are the only country in the world where the businesses are forced to accept a very expensive proposition, and that is providing health care to their workers. Up in Canada, that's not the case. Throughout Europe, Scandinavia, that is not the case. In every major country on earth except the United States, there are national health care programs guaranteeing health care to all people. So I think, Mark, your question is an excellent one. I wonder about it myself. I think this is an example where ideology in some cases where conservative business people choose ideology, their hesitations about government, rather than what makes good business sense, and that is to allow them to focus on their business rather than the very complicated and expensive proposition of providing health care to their workers. And at the end of the day, and there was just a study that came out a couple of weeks ago from the Commonwealth Fund reiterating what everybody knows to be true. The United States of America per capita spends far more on health care than do the people of any other major country on earth, and yet our outcomes compared to other countries are often not good. So the challenge that we face is getting the burden of health care off of the business community, creating, in my view, a Medicare for all single-payer system, running a high-quality, cost-effective healthcare system, which will be good for the people and certainly good for the businesses themselves.
We have about 2 minutes, Senator. You want to take another question, or you want to? Okay,
let's
great.
do that.
All right. Ivan, can you make it a short question, please, in Chicago, listening on WCPT?
Hey, Senator Sanders, I'll vote for you in a heartbeat and send you money. Let me suggest how the Christian right tea bags have been bamboozled into believing that money in politics is part of religious freedom in America. You know, the old message of charlatans like Oral Roberts used to be, send me all your money and God will reward you with a place in heaven. Now they preach, send me all your money and God will make you rich just like me. Now this leads to...
Ivan, your question is running too long. Is there a question there? Or?
Yeah. Don't you think this belief allows Republicans like Herman Cain say, if you ain't rich, blame yourself?
Okay, got it. Senator?
Well, I think, Ivan, you make a good point. I think one of the things that distresses me very much, there was just an article that came out the other day, that most poor people live in states controlled by Republicans. And yet day after day, Republicans are working against the best interest of those constituents, denying them access to Medicaid, not raising the minimum wage, et cetera, et cetera. So, Ivan, what I would suggest is, first of all, the Democratic Party needs a 50-state strategy, has got to get into the South, has got to get into the Southwest big time. And we need a strong grassroots movement whose goal is to make sure that people are not voting against their own best interest, who are not voting for folks who are sending their jobs to China or denying educational opportunity to their kids.
Senator Sanders, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
It's great to have you with us. And check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov.